Balanced versus single-ended audio isn't about winners and losers. It's about what sounds right for you. I talk to customers every week who've dismissed gear that would have been perfect for their system, all because of one word on the spec sheet. That single-ended amp you dismissed, it might be exactly what your system needs. Otherwise, you could miss out on the audio gear that will actually make your system sound its best. Hey there, I'm Drew Baird, professional engineer and founder here at Moon Audio. I've got about 20 years of building custom cables, audio systems, and modifying all kinds of equipment. And in my years, I found that there's a couple of stories that sort of ring to mind in terms of this topic. Let's say we've got Mr. Joe, and Mr. Joe has this balanced amplifier. Unfortunately, what Joe doesn't seem to understand is while it has balanced inputs and balanced outputs on the front, that doesn't mean it's a true balanced amplifier. There are pseudo-balanced amplifiers out there where designers are using op amps to convert single-ended to balance and balance to single-ended. And so when doing such a thing, you're actually adding circuitry into the signal path. And sometimes this can have a detrimental effect on the sound signature of your source material. So balance isn't necessarily always better. It really comes down to the circuit design. Sometimes single-ended can sound better, sometimes balance can sound better. Why would the single-ended sound better? Well, we're not introducing all these op amps and extra circuit paths to split a signal into two to create a pseudo-balanced environment. A true balanced headphone amp is going to have 4 2 sends, 2 returns of circuitry that's going to essentially look at each other, ward off any noise, improve dynamics, quiet background noise, make things cleaner and more resolute. So sometimes when you've got that pseudo-balanced amplifier, you're going to find that the single-ended connection may actually sound, and not just on the input, but also the output in terms of sounding better by just using the single-ended. Why? Because we've pushed out some of the extra circuitry that didn't make sense. Now, when we get to a true balanced headphone amplifier or a true balanced speaker amplifier, preamp, DAC, etc., in these situations, you're getting the true experience of balance. So when comparing solid state to tube and solid state, you can't really pick a winner. It's a different tonality, a different way of approaching a circuit design. They both have their pluses, they both have their minuses. The same thing can be said about balanced and single-ended. Even a true balanced amplifier may not sound as good as a single-ended amplifier. It all comes down to the design. So let's be careful how we get sort of hooked on balanced is always better, because it's not always true. It should be true, but it's not always true. So what does this mean for Mr. Joe? Well, Joe had nothing but single-ended gear above the amplifier. So what was happening when he connected that equipment to this balanced amp, this pseudo-balanced amp, is it was converting single-ended to balance because it had to, because none of his gear upstream, his DAC, his streamer, his other devices, they didn't have balanced outputs. So the pseudo-amplifier was essentially creating balance from nothing. And it just didn't sound good. He then figured out that by going to a single-ended amplifier from us and just doing a straight single-ended in, single-ended out sounded better than what he was trying to do with the balanced pseudo headphone amp. So what does balance really mean? Now there's 2 ways to look at this, okay? We can talk about it from an electronic standpoint, or we can talk about it from a cable standpoint. We've touched on a lot of the electronics part, right? There's true differential amplifiers, there's using op amps to split a single-ended circuit, change it to balance. There's other ways to do this with transformers as well. But let's talk a little bit about cables for a second. So balanced cables were designed and created to deal with, first and foremost, in pro studios and in pro applications or stage applications, very long runs. And essentially what you have is, instead of 2 conductors required for single-ended, a positive and a negative, you've got a send and receive, a hot and a cold, and a ground. And essentially what you do on each end of this cable in this situation, and let's say we've got a CD player that's 10 foot over here, amplifier or preamplifier that's 10 feet over here. We've got a long run of cable, and in each one of these pieces of equipment, there is a circuit that's going to look at the plus and minus signals. It's going to average any kind of noise that's on the line, and it's going to essentially get rid of it. So it's a way of taking care of any kind of interference that will possibly happen along this long line of cabling. Not only this, but it's also going to boost the gain. Your balanced connection is going to have several dB higher gain than your single-ended. Why? Because we're going to drive very long cables. Now, let's talk about on the headphone side. Now, headphones aren't balanced. To use balanced headphones has nothing to do with the headphones themselves. It has to do with the cable itself. By putting a balanced connector on it, you're now separating the left and right channel grounds. A balanced amp requires this to do true balance. And we'll get into talking about adapters later, but you can't convert a single-ended cable to balance because the grounds for the left and right channel are tied. There's no way to untie them. If you've got a balanced headphone cable, we can convert it to single-ended, no problem, but you can't do it the other way. So we've got this scenario where we've got cables that can be balanced and then equipment that can be balanced. Tie this all together, and what do we have? Well, let's say we've got a true balanced headphone amplifier or a preamp or whatever. If it's got a true balanced circuitry, we don't really necessarily need to worry about the op-amp splitter and dealing with common mode sort of the same way that we did before, because now the whole circuit is doing what we want it to do in terms of dealing with these long runs. A balanced amplifier is going to have a lot more gain, okay? It's not going to be artificially boosted up for just that signal path. It's going to naturally have more gain. It's going to have a quieter background based on the way the circuitry is designed. It's going to have a more powerful power supply, which is required to drive a balanced product. It may even have separate balanced power supplies for left and right channel, and you know, we can go on and on about power supplies. Power supplies are very important when it comes to audio equipment. It's probably one of the things that's least understood and underestimated in terms of how much of an importance it is in the design of a product. Two important things. Cables can be balanced and not balanced. Electronics can be balanced and not balanced. Again, going back, which is better? Well, it's all going to come down to the circuit design. So I can go on and on about that, but the bottom line is, reach out to us. Let us talk to you about what products you're thinking about buying. Let's get on the table. What do you have? Single-ended or balanced source equipment? What are we connecting to? Give me a list of your gear. Give me a list of your listening preferences, how you want to use everything, and we can help you get either the right decision, not necessarily always balanced, it may be single-ended, so that you get the right system for you. When does balance help? Let's get back to Joe. So Joe's got a couch that's about 20 feet away from his headphone amp. His wife would love to put him in the garage, but the bottom line is that's not going to happen. So he's got a high impedance headphone. And a high impedance headphone with a low sensitivity needs a lot of power to drive them. So there are two things going on here. First, he's got a headphone that's hard to drive, so he needs the extra power of a balanced amp. But the fact that he's far away, 25 feet, he needs to make sure that he doesn't lose any kind of dynamics, detail resolution because of the long length of cable. Cables become an important piece of the puzzle in this situation. Now, when Joe first started, he was actually using a balanced to single-ended adapter. So let's move that out to the side for a second. We'll talk about that in a minute. But right now, we needed to make sure that he had a long enough cable and that it was a true balanced cable from start to finish from that headphone amp to his high impedance headphones. So what this means is cables can have increased resistance the longer the length of cable. So two things going on here. One, we want to use top materials. So in his situation, we went from a copper cable to a silver cable. Silver has a much lower resistance than copper. And we made sure that that cable was balanced. So from his couch that's 30 feet away, we want to make sure that he gets that full power. What's my last piece of advice? Let's talk about adapters. Adapters are something you've got to be very careful about. First of all, let's try to always avoid adapters. Adapters should only be used as a last means of resort, okay? You've got a preamp that's single-ended and an amplifier that's balanced. There's no other connection points. In this situation, you may want to use an XLR to RCA adapter. However, I would highly recommend, instead of using an adapter, add it onto a set of cables, because each time you add in another piece of the puzzle, you're diluting your signal. Let us make you a pair of interconnects that have RCAs on one end, XLR on the other. This is the best way to do it. Here's a no-no, and we've got this in blogs all over our website. You cannot convert single-ended to balanced. I've seen so many people try and do this, and essentially what you're doing is the grounds are tied, you're plugging this in with a balanced adapter to a balanced amp, and now you're shorting to ground half of the circuit in each channel. This is a no-no. This can be very bad for your amplifier. Now, in some cases, it may not blow it up, but in a lot of cases, it probably will. You do not want to use an adapter that's going to convert a single-ended to balanced. Don't do it. Change out the main cable, like I said with the amplifier and preamp, but the same thing with, say, headphones or anything else. Let's change out that cable. Let's put on a balance connector. Let's not use an adapter. Now, we do make what are called adapter systems. Let's say you've got a balanced pair of headphones and you've got 5 headphone amplifiers. I have plenty of customers and friends that have lots of equipment, and they want to be able to change to each one of the connectors that are on the 5 different amplifiers. Number 1's got 1/4 inch. Number 2, 4-pin XLR. Number 3, dual 3-pin XLR. Number 4, 4.4 millimeter. Number 5, a 3.5 TRRS balance connector. Okay, so what we can do is create an adapter system for you, where the adapter is going to be balanced on the main cable side that connects to your main cable, and then we're going to convert it to either different balanced options or maybe a single-ended option. Again, the best thing to do is to have nothing in the signal path, but if you've got 5 different components that have different connections and you've got to have this done, it's a lot less expensive to have these little short adapter cables than to have 6 different headphone cables for your headphones. So in that situation, it's okay. I've also seen people that want to use a single-ended headphone and they want to connect it to their speaker amplifier. And now we are going to tie both channels together to ground. Now, a lot of speaker amplifiers, they do a star ground in which the speaker terminals are grounded to chassis and they're a shared ground, but not always. Again, it depends on the situation. It would be much smarter from the start. Let's go ahead and do a balanced connection to a set of bananas or spades instead of going from a 1/4 inch to bananas or spades. You just don't know. Without contacting the manufacturer that produced that product for you, you're just not going to know. It's not worth the chance of seeing smoke come out of the top of your amplifier when you get done. So adapters can be bad, adapters can be good, and make sure to check with your manufacturer how they specify how you can tie to their product. Remember, balance isn't automatically better. True balanced circuits can sound amazing, but most balanced gear is just single-ended with balanced outputs and inputs. Focus on the overall design quality, not just the connector type. A well-matched amplifier and headphone combination will always beat mismatched gear, regardless of whether it's balanced or single-ended. If you want to experience what properly matched cables can do for your system, check out our Dragon cables. They're custom designed for your amplifier and headphone combination. If you found this video interesting, there's another video that might catch your eye. It's amps versus preamps. Now, we talk a little bit in here about single-ended and balanced as well, but we dive a little bit deeper into the differences of what an amplifier is and what a preamplifier is. So make sure to check out that one next. That'll be good on your bucket list of learning about different types of audio equipment.